In today's Mind Chat, we will discuss about Vodafone, and I have the pleasure to have with me today Paresh Modi, who is the Group Head of Business Development and Innovation. Hi, Paresh.
Hello, Alberto. Great to see you. How are you?
I'm pretty good, and thank you. And what about you?
Yeah, we're fighting fit, moving ahead, moving fast. Lots and lots of activities going on at Vodafone. I think big opportunities probably will come out of this way of working, which will bear fruit, I think, in the long term. But overall, pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's we've been rushing to a digital revolution, and again, it's been a bit painful, and you can see from the wrinkles on my face that probably all of us is facing similar issues. But I believe, as you said, we'll see the payoff of all this digital transformation process that we've been forced to accelerate in the next incoming months and years. I think that 2020 will be remembered as a year of the digital revolution, probably.
Yeah, I agree fully.
And most of the time, revolution do not start by will, but mostly by chance, and then that's what.
Yeah, or you're kind of bumped into it somehow. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So before starting our journey into the Vodafone world of innovation, I think congratulations are in order. I think Vodafone has been confirmed also in 2020 among the corporate startup stars. So congratulations.
Which is so delighted about. That's the third year running that we're a corporate star, and we're very, very proud to be associated with this award, but also very proud to accept this award because we sit alongside some amazing other corporates that are doing some fabulous things, and I think that it's a testament to the corporates and the innovation teams that there is such a rich variety of innovation going on across the different companies, and for Vodafone to be a part of that, given all the things that we're doing, I think it's fantastic. So we're very proud to collect this award. So we'd like to thank all the judges and everyone who took part in the whole process. So
kudos. And so just to provide a bit more context, again, Vodafone is a company pretty well known, but you can give us some data point about Vodafone, because also it's a very, very fast evolving.
Yeah. And
also the next immediate question is how Vodafone as a group approach innovation.
Yeah, sure. So in short, many people will recognize the brand Vodafone in their country, but actually we're a global organization. We have networks and operations, deep networks in 20 countries, and we operate across Europe and Africa. We have the largest broadband footprint across Europe, which not a lot of people know. They think of us as a mobile company. And of course, we do have over 500 million mobile customers as well. And on top of that, across Africa with the biggest mobile money platform, we've been innovating in that space for a very long time, over 10, 12 years. So we have a rich history of innovation as a company. Vodafone sent the very first text message. Vodafone was in many countries at the start of the mobile revolution. So that's Vodafone in a nutshell. We have something like 100,000 employees, and we are constantly looking for new things, new innovations, and to engage that audience of 100,000 employees in the whole process of innovation. So my role is all around identifying what are the big needs for Vodafone at the moment, given its strategy across Europe, across Africa, around enterprise, B2B, and consumer, in the home, out of the home. We have some very big challenges, and especially now, more than ever, telecoms is a critical national infrastructure for so many countries, where the home place has now turned into a workplace, and the businesses are entirely relying on the infrastructure to keep everyone connected, but also individuals in order to be able to stay in touch with their loved ones or to be able to consume entertainment. So what are the big challenges that we have? That's always my first question. What are the challenges that we inside the company have? And before we go anywhere else to look for the best and the most amazing disruption, I must know what we're having internally. And so we have a very rich program of engaging the internal audience, because I feel always that's the hardest part, is to engage the internal audience and to really understand what they want. And then once we know what the core needs are and what is, how it fits with our strategy, we then prioritize the external facing activities accordingly. So we then go and search for the best startup partners that's going to directly match the needs of our business. And we would then have a very clear narrative when we go to these companies and say, look, what we're looking for is to bring 5G alive. And 5G is a new thing. And what you have today will help us bring it to life because of A, B, and C. So we're going to them with a very specific reason why we're going to them. And that way we find this inside-out approach of knowing what's inside and then going out creates a lot of strong targeted approaches to starters. So our whole raison d'etre is to ultimately find brilliant partnerships that can take us forward on a targeted basis on the topics that we really care about.
And we use, innovation is, and specifically open innovation, are multiple things. We typically use a framework to try to identify what might be the different models, tools to be used. And it's something ranging from stimulating innovation from inside, moving up to, as you say, partnership with early stage players that might use different tools, corporate accelerators, more recently venture builders, startup studios. Then the proper venture client model, meaning partnering, procuring from more mature, later stage startups. And then there are also the tools of investing into startups and acquiring startups. So I think using this framework as a sort of navigation tool to be used also to address what Vodafone is doing. We can start from the acceleration part. That is probably one of the activities that Vodafone started. Was probably one of the early players in the context.
Yeah.
And I know that you have multiple programs, multiple approaches. Can you give us a first?
Yeah, we've got so we have a variety of approaches depending on where the startup is at and what help they need and what support that we can provide. So the core of our business is networks, convergence, IoT, cloud, and for that, in our biggest operating company in Germany, we have a program called UPLIFT, where we bring startups through a process of support, not dissimilar to many other organizations, but the key difference with this one is that once you're through the accelerator, the UPLIFT program, we then open up our distribution channels to these companies. So we have thousands of salespeople. We have lots of other sales channels, direct, indirect, desk-based, web-based, telesales. So that's an enormous benefit that we can bring to a startup where we can actually help them with the distribution of their products and services. So for me, that's one of the key ones that sits at the core. We also have programs for earlier stage companies who we're helping to develop. There's a program called F-Lane, which is an accelerator which we run once a year in Germany, but it's a European-wide. In fact, it's an international program where we invite startups from all over the world, where it's more of a gender-based approach. So this is where We are really supporting females who are maybe female entrepreneurs and founders, and ideally their business is female focused as well. So really helping that whole gender cause. So we were very proud of that. We've been running that for 6 years, whereas UPLIFT we've been going for about 3 years. We also have a later stage accelerator called Tomorrow Street. Tomorrow Street is based in Luxembourg, and that's been going 3 years. And that is all about how do we help scaled companies scale even more, or scaled companies that are pretty big in maybe say outside of Europe to land in Europe. And the interesting thing about Tomorrow Street is it's co-located with our Vodafone procurement company. So we have the power of Vodafone's procurement engine really supporting these startups, where we introduce them to other suppliers, we get them into the ecosystem, we provide enormous networking benefits, as well as physical space and support. So like we have a range of others. We have 1 or 2 in Africa as well. So at the end of the day, our role here is, depending on what the requirements are of the startups, we'll find a mechanism of how we can support them if they fit with our business.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned the magic word procurement, and this, as you know, is mostly one of the typical barriers that might in a certain way undermine startup corporate collaboration, because yes, large corporate, typical large corporate, a lot of rules of engagement, formal process. So at some time, all the good work that typically is put in place by the innovation teams sometimes is a bit, if not killed, but most of the time often frustrated by legal and procurement, because they might be definitely a bigger roadblocker, might slow down the process a lot. One of the things that is, I believe, honestly and personally, that Vodafone is definitely benchmark international level has been his ability to deal with this problem, and you identify a sort of fast track for startups. This currently probably, I believe, is one of the benchmark at the global level, and it's something that again we have been also recognized in the past few years, as you have been one of the early movers and probably one of the more advanced solutions. So we'd like to give us some good details in terms of what have you done, what have been the journey, what is the final outcomes, and what could be your benchmark recommendation for other corporates that are currently facing similar issues. Since you already suffered the pain, probably maybe also add them to fast track the solution to the project.
Yes. Thank you, and it's something we're really proud of. Basically, the problem was exactly as you described, Alberto. We had people in our company that were, so we had startups. Clearly, the startups have a lot of problems when they get into corporates, and they get past the stage of, it's something the corporate wants to do with them, but then they get stuck in this awful nightmare of a process, where generally the process are dimensioned for large strategic vendors. So if I want to do a worldwide deal with Ericsson for 2 billion, 3 billion euros, process works really well, right? It's a fantastic process for that. Or if it's a worldwide deal with IBM for IT, works fantastically. But what we were doing, and what many companies do, is we were applying exactly the same process for a startup that has got 10 people, and they don't have a legal department, they don't have a anti-bribery and corruption program, they don't have a IT security team, they don't have all the things that a procurement process generally looks for in terms of compliance. It was being applied to startups, which as you say is awful. It's an awful experience for startups, and more often than not, all they want to do is just do a small proof of concept or a pilot where they get paid. Like it could be 10K, but there was no way of doing that. So we talked to our procurement leader, Ninian Wilson, who's the CEO of Vodafone Procurement, and he is a massive innovation advocate, has been for many, many years. And one of the programs, Tomorrow Street, was led by him and created by him, as I mentioned earlier. So he got it straight away. And what we decided between us was that we're going to just break all the barriers and cut through all the nonsense of, having to go through a complicated RFP process and all of the contractual process. And eventually what we came up with was a simple 3-page contract with 7 days onboarding as a target into our systems. And the contract terms would be, shrunk down quite a lot, because we recognize the status that a startup would be, including payment terms that are more commensurate with the way startups work and the need for their cash flows. So we put in place a 21-day payment term for startups to come through our fast track process. And the feedback we've had from startups has been outstanding. But interestingly, what I didn't expect was the feedback we've had from our internal community of people making the procurement, actual people in the business as opposed to people in procurement, was also fantastic. I mean, they all of a sudden it opened up an opportunity, because to them, to the internal community, they saw procurement as a barrier, because they saw that they had to go through the heavyweight process in order to get a startup on board, and it would put them off. Even though the solution was great, it would actually put them off. They'd rather either go via a reseller, a resale route. So I procure with the startup, but via a big system integrator that I already have a deal with, which is bad. It's wrong, because the man in the middle is adding no value. Or they would just shy away and say, you know what, I haven't got the time for this. And generally with business people inside the company in a big corporate, but also with startups, you need to lower the friction. You need to make sure that there is an easy entry in and an easy entry out, and there should be a way to at least get going on a topic. Now, once you're up and running, and then you decide to scale, and you need to have a more comprehensive agreement in place. At least it gives you a bit of time, right, while you're doing the technical due diligence and running a pilot proof of concept. Gives you some time, and then you might then put in place a more comprehensive agreement. So the results have been fantastic. We've had something like 100 companies flow through Fast Track in the last two years. We've had millions and millions of purchase orders raised, and we are getting fantastic feedback from the startups in terms of the benefits that they've gained through the whole process.
No, I think you point out a very, very sensible point, that is time. Yeah. And again, it makes sense to spend on full lengthy due diligence if you're talking about millions. But startups at the beginning, we are talking about the opportunity maybe to work together with small money and small value.
Exactly.
So onboarding on something that takes months and requires cost, resources for something that we don't know it will be the final solution at the end was the Kreislauf, using the German word that break the cycle. And you were very able to decouple the problem and to talking about something to start with, let's keep it clean, and then the more the relationship will evolve, the more will be adjusted also with the compliance, with the rules, and we need to check that also. Again, if you're becoming a strategic vendor, it's important that I cover all my business. But at the beginning, since we are testing, probably doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then one question, I know the answer because I know that behind the Vodafone procurement transformation, there is a lot of work of physical people like you that identify the effort and push to make it happen. And so sometimes, so the question is, how much has been a process that's been driven by some, let's say, open innovation champions that took the problem and tried to find a solution despite everything, and then when it turned into be a corporate, a wide standard way of doing it. How long it personally cost you to get there?
Yeah.
And how you've give us a bit more color about that, because I know
it's a great question, and I think for us it's not a great case study because we got lucky because of the very forward-looking procurement team and leadership that we have. It actually, so as soon as we identify, almost, and it's symptomatic of the way corporates think, almost for about 6 months or a year, I knew, like at least 6 months, I knew the problem, and my team knew the problem, and we tried to work through it at the working level with the mid-level management in procurement. But I didn't think it was really properly resolvable until I went and talked to the CEO of procurement, and all of a sudden, things changed. And so that's why we got lucky, because we have we have the CEO of our procurement company that got it straight away, and then even for him, he then had to reorientate a lot of his processes, get his teams thinking in the right mindset, have a dedicated individual thinking about just startups, and we have that. So there's one person dedicated to startups in our procurement company, in terms of just the procurement side of startups, not the accelerator that we have, which is another set of people. And what we have is, the processes behind, like accounts receivables, IT security, because normally you have to go into data privacy, so normally you have to go through very long-winded processes, which covers those topics. And so we really did this in partnership with the procurement team, because it wasn't just me convincing procurement, it was actually the organization had to systemically accept this, because there are so many different aspects of this whole chain of making a procurement process in place. So I think we got lucky. If I had to give advice to other corporates, I would go and really sell this to senior management within your procurement company as a real benefit to the company, and also to the other supplier ecosystem. Because what we're finding is, when we bring a startup on board with great disruptive technology, and we do it quickly, and we demonstrate the value of what they're doing, it demonstrates that Vodafone is an innovation-focused player, that we take innovation seriously, which then tells our big established vendors, gives them a message that, guys, you need to bring your innovation as well. Yeah. So yes, we have startups, but it shouldn't be that just the startups are leading by example. You guys need to also step up as well in terms of bringing new capability. So what our procurement team have done is taken the benefits of working with startups and shone the light back at the big suppliers to say, this is what you need to be doing, and using that as a way to really get the other suppliers to up their game. It's also the third benefit we've had is that we've also been able to demonstrate to policymakers, governments, and regulators that we take startups seriously, and that we are going to be fair to the startup ecosystem. So just by having this process in place, it demonstrates something we're giving back, and demonstrating our seriousness to the SME space, the tech sector, and driving that forward. So there's all sorts of benefits that you could go back to your procurement people and say, if you get this right, there are benefits to your suppliers, there's benefits to the value we're bringing into the company, and there's benefits to the external messaging you're giving in terms of how serious you are about startups.
Yes, I think that's properly explained the process. That is not easy. There is not a fast track to make this happen, because again, requires people are convinced, required to convince not just a single person, but an entire unit, an entire company that there is value behind that. But I think this is a trend that I think should be followed by everybody now. I think you have been one of the trendsetters, making the.
Absolutely.
And then you can definitely be a good reference case for
and by the way, if any company wants to have a catch up with us to go into more details about what we're doing, then we're more than happy to share.
I expect you get a couple of requests. I have a list of partners that might be interested to have such a conversation. Okay, so let's move from, we discussed about accelerators, how you do engage with early stage. You have discussed about how you engage with later stage companies, and which is the instrument. There are two other tools that are sometimes used by other corporates. One are investment, the other are M&A acquisition. What is Vodafone doing there?
Yeah, so we used to have a very active CVC, corporate venture, and we invested in something like 40 odd companies. At one point, we decided to pause on that because, the way we were set up, we were not getting enough value. We were getting some financial return, but we weren't getting the strategic value from those activities. So we decided to put that on pause. We still have our Vodafone Ventures Limited, and the company is still live. And occasionally, when something really interesting comes up, we do invest. And then we'll go back into, at some point, investing when the timing is right. But an interesting investment that we did recently make was a company called AST and Science. And they're launching it's actually a joint investment between us and Japanese telco entrant Rakuten and a couple of others. Super interesting. It's a space technology around how do we provide broadband in rural areas, in non-covered areas, with very low-cost satellites and very low-cost launch mechanisms. So to me, that's super exciting. It's very right at the core of what we're trying to do, which is to provide connectivity to businesses and to people all around the world. And it plays to our strengths around networks and building networks. And it's something, and to us, we can add real value to that organization by being part of it. So I think that's probably the model we will follow. It's something that we are still working out exactly how we're going to do ventures going forward, but we believe if we're going to invest in companies, we need to be adding the value. M&A
that's not just a comment on the CVC part, investment part. That I think is a quite discussed topic, and I think the fact that you have a CVC fund that has been paused. You remember when?
We paused about 3 years ago. And
3 years ago. Yes, I think the timeline of, again, there's been a sort of CVC boom. Again, let's keep in mind that Telcos has been the early movers in the open innovation arena. And so I think Vodafone, Telefonica, Orange, and all the others, main telcos of the world has been the one that have probably helped to build the open innovation industry. If it is an industry, you have been the first accelerator has been launched by Telcos, the first CVC has been launched by Telcos. So I think it's very, very interesting to look at what you guys have done, because in a certain way you are also might anticipate some trends. And also today the investment part is under discussion. There is a big discussion if it doesn't make sense to have a CVC fund separate to invest off balance, is to keep a more just a pure financial or a very, very strategic approach. So I think what you have done, I think, is in a certain way also anticipating some trends and discussions.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think the efforts that we're making in open innovation will naturally lend themselves to that discussion. Generally, we only want to be investing where we can add real strategic value. and where we can get strategic value back. I don't think that we want to be investing like a VC firm for companies that are not related to the core of what we are trying to achieve strategically. And I think that's the way, that's where we can create a little bit of differentiation against a VC. We need to be able to demonstrate some value of the corporate. And I think that all CVCs that are successful do that very well. And I think that's something that we should consider doing going forward.
And going back to M&A acquisitions, what's
the
M&A
approach here? We've been very quiet on M&A. We've made only a small number of acquisitions over the last few years. The last we've made we acquired a company called Grandcentrix in Germany about a year and a half ago. It's an IoT consultancy. It's fabulous small company in Munich that is demonstrating value to automotive industry, industrial industry, and so on. But to me, that's a really nice one. We acquired a company in South Africa called IoT.next. Again, very, very focused around IoT, and again, providing all sorts of smart applications around the edges of the IoT ecosystem. So we will make acquisitions, but we make acquisitions again based on, if we can create some strategic synergistic value. But we're not actively saying, this year we need to acquire 3 companies or 5 companies. It's more opportunistic based on what we're seeing and where we feel we're finding a really good opportunity, then we'll jump on it.
And yes, again, eventually, if there is a very strategic fit, this is the typical way of representing the world of acquisition. And this has been company that we have been collaborating before, or you just?
Yeah, we've collaborated with these companies before we acquired them, and similarly in the past we do the same. We did that with a company called Voucher Cloud 4 or 5 years ago, which I was on the board of, where we worked with them. We took an equity stake. We integrated into our it was a couponing and advertising business, which we incorporated into our loyalty programs. And so, and then when we really loved what they were doing, we just bought the whole company because
that's the natural process. Again, you start working, and then when you see good value of the collaboration and a pretty strong strategic fit, you make the next move to bring them in. Going outside of the world of startups and more looking at what is called today entrepreneurship, meaning how to source idea for your own people, and also how to expand the culture of innovation, of entrepreneurship inside a company. I think you launched an initiative called Launchpad that I think is pretty interesting. Can you give us some
Yes, absolutely. And I should probably also touch on Bright Sparks as well.
Brightspark is another. Was my next question. Exactly.
Okay. So Launchpad so the context for Launchpad was that we had various employee ideation programs, but everything that we did was quite subscale or quite local. So that was the one context. The other context was Vodafone, from the CEO down, launched, and created our new set of values and beliefs and behaviors, which we feel it wasn't a 1-year thing or a 2-year thing. It's like a 10-year program of a change in the way that we approach problems, create innovation, create new things. So that whole program is called the Spirit of Vodafone, and the Spirit of Vodafone was launched in December last year, so nearly 1 year ago. It's very new, and so what our CEO and our HR director wanted to do was to kind of bring the Spirit of Vodafone alive, just within a few weeks of launching the Spirit of Vodafone, and make it more tangible. So they came to me and asked, and I was tasked with creating an entrepreneurship program from scratch that was truly global, at scale, fully backed by the whole spirit of Vodafone, which was launched to all 100,000 employees in December 2019, with quite an intense set of follow-up substantiating activities that followed. I was asked to kind of set this up in November. We got it all ready to launch in March. Like we were going to launch on early March, and then all of a sudden the pandemic happened. We were all told to go home. So all the activities that we'd planned to launch our program, there was going to be in building, in office. We were going to have 18 different events in 18 different countries on the same day in order to launch this program. We couldn't do it, right? So we had to go virtual, and within a week launch anyway. So, I asked the question of our CHRO, do we launch? And she was like, we launch, because this is important. Now more so than ever, we need to keep our people engaged in the whole process of innovation. So actually, we did, and we launched the program towards the end of March. The response we got from the Vodafone internal kind of audience was tremendous. Way, way, way more than I'd expected, even if it was there was no pandemic. And it's beyond all the KPIs that we set. So the idea was that anyone in the company could submit any idea they like, as long as it fitted with our purpose around planet, digital society, or inclusion, or if it fit with our strategy, which was very clearly laid out. So anyone can submit an idea. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to have a good idea. You had to go through a process of filling out a form and putting the submission together, and getting your manager to kind of look at it and approve it, which was not it's not a one-line process. It's a 1 hour, at least a 1 hour per person per idea to submit the ideas. So we were very fortunate in that we got 1,200 ideas within the 6-week period. And not only did we get 1,200 ideas, but we got ideas from every single one of the 20 countries that Vodafone operates in. To my mind, and it feels like it's a proper global program at scale. Yeah. So to have that many people apply and to put that much effort into their idea each, it's not something you just tick a box and submit. To me, it tells me that the audience is engaged, right? So we have an audience that's engaged.
So we are eating a nerve that was...
Yeah, absolutely. Either as pent-up demand, either it was the lockdown, either it was this need for innovation to bring it out. It wasn't as if we were offering big prizes or whatever. All we were offering was the idea, if it goes forward, it will get a senior sponsor, it'll get a little bit of money, you'll get a little bit of time out of your day job, but you're not going to come out of your day job. It's just, but what you will get critically are expert resources to work on it. So people who are expert in those areas, and you would still be effectively the CEO of the idea, but you'd still, if it made sense, you stay in your day job and you see that through. So we had 1,200 ideas. We identified 25 winners, and we before we got to the 25 winners, it wasn't any judge or jury that defined those 25 winners. We had local experts, something like 100 experts looking at those 1,200 ideas. We shortlisted those ideas, and the shortlisted ideas went up for a public vote in the whole of the company.
How many you shortlisted?
We shortlisted something like 120.
Okay,
so
10%.
Yeah, so effectively, not only did the employees come up with the idea, but the employees voted for the best idea. And in the end, yes, we had experts in between shortlisting, but in the end, it's the people that identified the ideas and the people that chose.
So from 120 to 25 has been just the vote of the people,
correct.
or has been a combination?
No, just the vote.
Or you no longer have a say?
No longer have a say. We hand it back to the people. It's a bit dangerous, Albert. It's a little bit like Brexit, right?
No, exactly. I'm a bit scared.
It is a bit scary, I'll be honest, because we say any one of the ideas that wins, we commit to. Yeah? And but the people chose some amazing ideas. I mean, they were great ideas. I'll give you some examples. How to create one of the towns where we're located. How to create a whole town that's a green town, all based on our technology, on IoT, on sensor technology, and so on. And that idea is going forward. Another idea is digital tipping in Africa, where a number of vocations, a number of jobs that people do are rely 100% on tipping. When you give physical money, and that's no longer possible in the pandemic. So, using our technology and mobile money, how do you actually tip people? And that's actually helping people survive through the pandemic because people are making money. All sorts of things around how do you interact with the hospitality industry in Southern Europe, in Spain and Italy. This idea where an app's been created where small restaurants and bars that would never have an online presence, that we would create, that this app would effectively create an online presence for booking tables and for reserving takeaway times and all of these things. So actually what happened was this pandemic just changed the mindset to, our community has a problem now. How do we help address the problem? So overall, fantastic. But incidentally, talking about engagement, we have 100,000 employees. Something like 12,000 people actually voted. It takes half an hour to vote because you have to go through the ideas that are shortlisted. Half an hour to an hour. We have something like 10 to 12,000 people that actually voted as well. So not only we have so many applications and so many shortlists and so many winners. But we also had, people really engaging in the whole process. So I think it was a great success.
How long does it take from a screen from 2000 to the 25, which is the process? I think in March you launched.
Yeah, so 5 weeks to apply, and then 4 weeks to choose the winner. So that process after that was shortlisting and voting, and everything was 4 weeks. And then because what we wanted to do was we had the senior management showcase of our top 300 managers, our CEOs of our businesses and so on. We wanted to showcase these ideas there. So we had a timeline that we wanted to hit. So all 25 ideas were showcased at the global senior management event with our CEO. We celebrated those 25 ideas. At that point, there were only ideas in May. Now we're going through the process of incubating those ideas, and many of those ideas are now coming towards the end. I'd say out of the 25 ideas, 20 will survive, which is fantastic. We expected much more to, and then I think 1 or 2 of those are pivoting to something different of the ones that didn't survive. And then the other, the 20 are moving forward. So I think we have a really good success rate. And I think what we want to do is then next year actually measure the value of the success of those ideas because they're just being built.
Two technical questions here because I think it's a very interesting topic. First of all, again, for launching from November to March, which platform did you use? Again, you as an internal platform, you developed.
Yeah, we had an external platform. We actually used a startup to help us with the whole process. A company called Pollinate. We're also at the moment looking at evolving that platform with another vendor side by side, and I think that we can. So where we want to go now is we want to bring startups into the mix because. And it brings us back to the whole startup ecosystem because we believe that many of the ideas, because when we launch this again for next year, and we'll do this more So the plan is to launch the global one again. We also want to launch ones that are micro challenges that are launched by experts. So more specific problems that to try and help resolve some of our roadmap issues that we might have on our products and services. Where we think that we don't have the capacity to build some of these things ourselves, or we can't go fast enough, we then, once the idea has been identified, we would like to then bring startup partners in to help us solve those problems. Yeah. So the problem may have been created and identified internally. The idea may have been germinated internally, but then to deliver it, it may be that we work with a partner, typically a startup or a kind of disruptive player, in order to deliver the solution. So I'm very excited about that.
No, and the idea of combining ideas from employees and idea from external is something that other corporates are doing. And was using this entrepreneurship platform no longer as just a platform for internal ideation, but a platform for sort of way for sourcing early stage, coming from inside outside, even better combining. That's gives us even more value on the platform. Obviously, it's a bit more complicated to manage, but it's interesting. And the final question about the Launchpad is KPIs. What are the KPIs that you identified at the beginning of the journey? And which of them was a good choice, which of them were not?
KPI was all about employee engagement. That's really what the company wanted us to do, is to engage our employees in the whole, and the theme was create the future as one of the things, one of the pillars under the spirit of Vodafone. So the challenge I was given was, okay, if you can have 350 ideas, and if you can get something like 10 markets, 10 of our countries engaged, and if you can get something, a few thousand votes, and it wasn't even defined how many votes, then that's a big success. Luckily,
so you scored them all.
Yeah, we flew them out of the water beyond our wildest expectations. And the interesting thing was about 80% of them came within like 1 day of the deadline, even though we gave them 5 weeks. So yeah.
Good. And I like to...
And Brightsparks, maybe I can touch on Brightsparks.
No, exactly. I want to conclude our conversation about Brightsparks. This is another very interesting way of engaging people and giving back.
Yeah, super exciting. So we ran one cohort of this once in 2019, and now we're looking to run again in 2021. But basically, Brightsparks was a partnership with Oxford University's incubator, the same innovations department that's creating the vaccine, actually. And that's where the spin out of the Oxford vaccine came from. So Oxford University Innovations came to us and said, we'd like to create a partnership with some of your small early stage companies. They're early stage companies, and to use some of the brightest and best talent that we have in Vodafone to act as mentors to these startups, these very early stage startups, in order that we can help them develop and scale their businesses. So we ran a global competition where we asked for people to apply to become a mentor of these startups for 12 months. Effectively, they're sitting on the board as an advisory or a non-exec. And the idea would be that you would dedicate, 1 day a week of your time. We had enormous amounts of applications from across the company. We could only pick 10. So we had 10 mentors, 10 startups, and we went on a journey together. And that was very successful in that every single company progressed. I think one of the companies failed. They decided to shut down because it wasn't their idea wasn't scaling. 9 carried on, and those 9, all of those went on to either raise money, develop, gain new customers, raise new funding, and identify new markets. And in every step of the way, the Vodafone person, the mentor, would be with them. So it's not just like a one-off, one call a quarter or something like that. This was like they're in there every day, every now and again, on chat, on WhatsApp, but also meetings and also helping meet with investors, or, and you've got someone from Vodafone sitting with you in an early stage company where you're only 3 people, right? And the 4th person is the Vodafone head of IoT, or Vodafone, developer of our smart tech business, or, someone who brings that credibility, that you can see that there's some shaping that goes. So we help these companies through everything from redefining their strategy through to redesign their UX, all the way through to the back end, big data, whatever it is that they wanted. The program that we're going to do now in 2021, we're going to scale from 10 companies to 50 companies. We'll have other partners, not just Oxford University Innovations. And we're going to be European-wide, because that was quite a UK-centric one, because we were thinking mindset of we need to be co-located with Oxford. And now we don't have that. We have that freedom of actually we can work virtually absolutely fine. So we've decided to expand this across Europe. The other interesting change is going to be that we're going to ally it very much with our core business, because where we think we can bring the power is where we actually, a little bit like UPLIFT, where we bring the power of Vodafone along with you. So we choose companies that are going to be much more relevant to our 2 strategic topics. Number 1 is around future of home. How do we develop the home, whether it's smart technology, entertainment, IoT, or EV, or whatever that is. And the other big topic for us is business 2025. How do we develop our business segment, especially the SME sector? So we want companies, and we're looking for companies. We're going to start to put the call out, and we'll come to you, Alberto, and all the rest of the community that you're managing here. We want 50 companies that are going to be relevant to Vodafone, but where we can, with our expertise and our talent and our distribution channels, our sales capability, technical capability, where we can add significant value to those companies and to be able to help them scale. So we think that there's a real win-win with Bright Sparks coming up.
So I think from all what we discussed and do today, I think your award has been very, very well deserved. I think, and beyond the results that you put in place is also the process, the journey. I think is very important. Again, and one of the most interesting part of our conversation today. And again, anytime we discuss the 2 of us, but again, I wanted to share our recurring conversation with the broader audience, is the fact that any programs that has been launched has been changed and is still evolving, because again, the more you do, the more you see how it can be done better, what does it still make sense, what doesn't longer make sense, and then how things change. So this is the essence of the approach of open innovation, that is a journey where you continue to reshape the mix and reshape the formula in order to make it fit with an evolving scenario. And so really thank you, Paresh.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of this Corporate Stars Award for so many years and doing a brilliant job and bringing us together as a corporate community in this very important topic. I think it's fantastic, and it's a shame it's going to be a virtual event in December, but hopefully we'll be together again soon.
Next year. Thank you, Paresh.
Okay, take care, Alberto.